as we're in progress. So good morning, everybody. It's so nice to be here with everyone. For those of you that don't already know me, my name is Gwen Stoltz, and I am honored to be the new Executive Director for Represent PA. Now, most of you know this on here. Represent is a unique organization in that we are the only PAC that is solely dedicated to supporting pro-choice Democratic women that are running for the state House and the state Senate. And these women are hardworking women. They are willing to put the work in and the time in that it takes to run for office. And then once they get there, to legislate in Harrisburg. And let's be honest, as we were just talking about before this started, it is not the best landscape right now to be in politics, but these women do it and they do it every day. Since Represent PA started a little over a decade ago, a lot of progress has been made. There are many more women that are serving in the Pennsylvania General Assembly, thanks to organizations like Represent PA. But there still is a lot of work to be done. And what we're talking about today really gets at the heart of why Represent PA, and frankly, other organizations like Represent that support women running for office, are so important. We're talking about hurdles that women face when they step up and run for office. Before, though, we get into that conversation, if you want to put up the first slide, Tiffany. I wanted to give just a broad overview of politics in the country. I guess, yeah, if you go to the next slide. Yeah, sorry about that. Okay, so none of this is going to come to any surprise to anybody here. And we pulled this data from the Center for American Women in Politics. In the 47 presidencies that we have never had a woman serve as president. We've had one woman serve as vice president. About a quarter of our US senators are women, 28.7% of our US representatives are women, a quarter of the governors countrywide are women. When you look at state legislatures across the country, those numbers are a little bit better. 33.6 of those serving in state legislatures are women. And when you look inside those numbers, you can see that it leans heavily Democratic. Now, those numbers have increased fivefold since 1971, but there's still a lot of work to be done. If you look at diversity in that group of women, it's about 70% that are identifying as white. So we certainly have work in that area to do. If you, on the next slide, I wanted to get into a little bit of, since we are Represent PA, homing in on Pennsylvania politics. So this information was pulled from the Gender Parity Index report. This comes out every year. And what Represent Women does in this report is they rank all of the states. They take a look at how many women are holding office and in what different elected positions they're in. So, we've never had a woman serve as governor in Pennsylvania. Currently, one out of our statewide executive offices is held by a woman. We've never had a US senator be a woman. I mean, that's crazy to me. 4 out of our 17 US House of Representatives are women. Then when you look in the state legislature again, as we saw countrywide, the statistics are a little bit better. The state Senate, is looking pretty good. Now, remember this, I'm not breaking out political affiliation. So this isn't pro-choice Democratic women. This is just all women. 38% of those serving in the state Senate are women. And in the state House, 31% of the state representatives are women. Now, in 2022, when the new census data came out, that revealed that 50.5% of the population in Pennsylvania is women. So why on earth, despite the fact that in Pennsylvania, over half of our population being female, why are women still so woefully underrepresented in politics, in elected office? Well, I mean, we could talk for days about why this is. There's sexism, there's misogyny, and then there's things like women couldn't vote until 1920 was the first election women in Pennsylvania could vote in. Women could not hold a credit card in their name until 1974. That blows my mind. And when you look at the nuts and bolts of running for office, that's what we're talking about today. What are those hurdles that women are having? So if you want to go to the next slide. Yeah, okay. So this slide, look, this is by no means comprehensive. I ran for office in 22. I was endorsed by Represent PA as well. Some of these things really resonated with me, and I've heard stories from other women, but I'm sure there's many other things that women do face. But some of the key themes that seem to come up: work-life balance. What does it mean to be an ambitious woman? Are they treated differently than an ambitious man? What about that work-life balance? I shouldn't say in every household, but oftentimes more domestic responsibility falls on the woman. I can say in my own case, that was the situation. So I'm married, I have 3 children. Prior to my running for office, I was the one that stayed in contact with the schools for the kids. I'm the one that dealt with social activities and after school activities. I knew the calendars for the kids. And when I decided to step up and run for office, my husband had to start paying attention, which is fine, but it's just one other thing that you have to deal with. Financial barriers. I mentioned that women could not hold a credit card in their own name until 1974. How does that reverberate into financial issues? Are there barriers specific to women? Are there fundraising gaps? If you think that women do tend to have more responsibilities on their plate, particularly if there are women in the home, do they have less time to even fundraise? Are there inherent differences, just, the people, the network that women have to reach out to fundraise? Does the cost of childcare have more of an impact, again, because those domestic responsibilities are falling on them? What about media and voter bias? Is there skewed coverage, greater scrutiny? I recall when I was running, I was interviewed by a local paper, and it was like 45 minutes that I talked to the reporter. I spent a lot of time talking about the fact that I'm a research biochemist and that I worked for the EPA and all of this stuff that I felt really proud of. I'm very proud of my children too, but that wasn't the focus of the conversation. I think I spent 30 seconds talking about my children. The entire article was about my children. So like things like that, and you take with that what you will. Greater scrutiny. Are women more likely to receive comments like, what shoes they're wearing, or how they're doing their makeup and their hair, how they're talking? Do they sound shrill? Things like that. What about party and institutional barriers? It's certainly not a secret that in Pennsylvania, politics here are still largely dominated by men. So what does that feel like as a woman stepping up to run for office? Are there real life things that come up because of that? And then, is the bar set higher for women? Now, this could be something that we put on ourselves. We feel like we need to have more than our male counterpart, or is that external? If we have 2 candidates, one's a man and one's a woman, are we going to expect a longer resume from the woman? So here with us, we have 3 fabulous women to help us dive into these topics. We're going to hear some real life stories other than my own that I just shared, and hopefully put some context to this conversation. So I'm going to present all 3 of their backgrounds so that we can then stop sharing the slides and then have like a more natural conversation where we're looking at everyone's faces. Okay, so we've got Hadley Haas, who is out in Allegheny County. She is a previously endorsed Represent PA candidate. She ran in 2024, and I don't think it's a surprise. She's running again in 26. We'll probably talk a little bit more about that. She's out in House District 44. And I pulled a few bullet points from her website. This by no means is comprehensive of all of the things that Hadley has done, and she can elaborate on more when she speaks. But things that jumped out at me: she formed and chairs the Friends of the Hearing Center at Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh. She served as a parent representative to the State Newborn Hearing Screening Committee, and she's the elections chair for Moms Demand Action locally, and also co-leads the Pittsburgh chapter of Moms Demand Action. And then on the next slide, we've got some bits about Elizabeth Moro, also a previously endorsed candidate. Elizabeth ran in 2024. Oh, something weird happened there, Tiffany. I'm not sure why the name of her book is gone. Elizabeth can talk about that, but she wrote a book, and it was about rebuilding our communities in a world too often focused on division. She's also a small business owner and a real estate broker, founded the Centerville Place Cafe and Market, and she also helped preserve a local historic farm that was important in her community. And on the next slide, we've got a little background on Jo Piazza. So Jo is an international best-selling author. She has written dozens of books, many of them focused on the difficulties of being an ambitious woman in the field. Her books have been translated into 10 different languages. They're in over 20 different countries. Nearly all of them have been optioned for television and film. And she also created and hosts the award-winning podcast Under the Influence. But she's here today to speak about a book that she wrote called Charlotte Walsh Wants to Win. And this book has a fictional female character that decides to run for office in Pennsylvania, which is a crazy idea. Just kidding. So here's the run of show for today. So first we're going to hear from Jo Piazza. And I'm very excited to hear from her. She's going to share some of the research that she did in writing Charlotte Walsh Wants to Win, how she developed that character, and any other things she learned along the way about women running for office. We'll then hear from Elizabeth Moro, and she's going to expand on her background and share any hurdles that she faced running for office. And then we'll hear from Hadley Haas, and she'll share as well any difficulties that she experienced or whatever she wants to share about her run. At that point, I have a few questions I was going to throw out to our three guest speakers, but then we will be mindful of the time because we want to make sure there's time at the end for all of you to ask questions, and you can be putting questions in the chat or save them until the time that we're devoting to that. But without that, I think I will stop talking and I'm going to turn it over to Jo.
Guys, it's so listening to that introduction about everything that women go through running for office, the still dire statistics when it comes to equality in political life. I mean, it like literally transports me back 10 years to when I wrote this book. I wrote this book 10 years ago. It blows my mind. I was convinced that this book was going to be out of date so quickly when I sold it to Simon & Schuster, because I sold it before Hillary lost the election. And I was writing it that year. And when I was first writing it, it was supposed to be much more of a satire, because I have been covering political campaigns for about 20 years now. I actually started out at the New York Daily News when I was a baby reporter as a gossip columnist on the Russian Molly column. It was the only job I could get at a New York City daily. And I, frankly, covering celebrities really trained me to cover politics better than pretty much anything else. And I was covering our current president as a celebrity at the time. But I quickly moved over to the political beat, and then I was on the campaign trail and went to run the digital networks at Current TV, the short-lived, beautiful, progressive cable news experiment where everyone had beautiful hair. And through all of that, I just kept seeing over and over again that coverage of women candidates was skewed. We treat them differently than we treat male candidates. We write about them differently. I had editors at the New York Daily News who would make me write entire columns about Hillary's hair or the fact that she wore a goddamn scrunchie. And when I said no, I got in trouble. And these were women editors. That's what was driving me nuts. The fact that every woman candidate was constantly asked, who's watching your kids while you do that? We've never asked a man that question in the history of men. And then just how the general coverage, as you mentioned earlier, was completely skewed. If a woman is ambitious, she's a bitch. If she's forceful in a speech, she's shrill. The adjectives used to describe women running for office are things that would never be used for men. And I sat in focus groups and saw this happening in real time. And back in the halcyon days when we thought that Hillary was going to win, I thought that this would be a really funny satire. And then everything went the other way. And it became really kind of more of a character-driven book about what this takes, what it takes for a woman to run for office, and then what it takes for a woman to have ambition in the world when it comes to anything. And the personal toll it takes on her, the toll it takes on her marriage, on her family. I wanted to explore all of the aspects of that and also dig deep into the inner workings of a campaign when it comes to a woman. And I chose Pennsylvania. I was actually living in San Francisco at the time. But I chose Pennsylvania because I'm from here. I'm back here now. I live in Philly. Go Birds. And I really thought that PA was a great microcosm for the rest of the country. You know, we have really vibrant urban centers with great colleges, rural areas, purple collar counties. I'm from Bucks, and I've seen what's been happening in Bucks over the past 10 years. Now I live in Center City, Philadelphia, where, to be honest, I saw a Charlie Kirk flag and memorial the other day on someone's house 2 blocks down from me, which was surprising. And it truly was. Pennsylvania was a great state to be able to write this in because it did represent what the country was like writ large 8-10 years ago. I think in some ways it still really does. But like I said, I thought that this book was going to be outdated by now. I thought we would read it and be like, that is quaint as F. That is not the case. Things are actually, I think, in a lot of ways, a little bit more dire and a lot worse right now. I think coverage of women, as we saw with the last election, is still absolutely terrible. And a lot of that terrible coverage is coming from other women, which continues to blow my mind. The book had been optioned for film and for television. It was bought by Amazon. Julia Roberts was going to star in it 10 years ago. And it ended up dying in development because Julia Roberts had a dream. She didn't want to be in it anymore. Hollywood is the dumbest place ever. But it was recently re-optioned. And we were going to start rewriting some of the episodes. There's 8 episodes already written. What we realized is we didn't really have to. The world is like so similar to that world that it is mind-blowing. Now, the hurdle, and I'm bringing this up because I think that where we are at culturally is very, very interesting right now. The hurdle is that Hollywood keeps saying they don't want to do anything political. Like, I have 3 other projects in play right now, which aren't overtly political projects, but they're political projects. And we are hearing it over and over again. They want nothing to do with anything that overtly smells of progressive politics at all, or progressive cultural values, which is a big shift. And that is going to be a problem for us, because I truly think that culture is going to win this war and change the hearts and minds of voters who have largely checked out. And the fact that, like, we no longer have Hollywood on our side the way that we did for a very long time is going to make this a lot trickier. I'm hoping I'm going to push through some of these projects. I think it's really important. I would love to see Charlotte on the screen, because I think that seeing a woman in office, even in a fictional show, even reading about it in a book, is really powerful, especially for young women. And one of the things we know right now is that young women are being more swayed towards the right than they ever have before, through social media. I mean, that's the other job that I do right now. I work a lot in the social influence sphere. I work with political influencers and do a lot of reporting on social. And it has been blowing my mind and terrifying me that young women are really being swayed by conservative values on the right in a very real and impactful way that I don't think we've ever seen before. My latest novel, the one that came out in July, is called Everyone is Lying to You. And it's about conservative tradwife influencers and the power that they have over our country. And then also them murdering their terrible patriarchal husbands. It's a lot of fun. It's a romp. I'll put it in the notes. But in real life, I'm seeing them have a lot of sway. I'm seeing these conservative influencers impact young women's decisions about things like birth control, checking out of the workforce, going to college. And that terrifies me. So I'm saying this to say, I think we have such an uphill battle to fight right now. We can do it, but I do not think we've seen a landscape like this in a very, very long time.
Well, thank you. Thank you for when we come back to questions, hopefully you'll chime back in. I guess we'll
Yeah.
kick it over to Elizabeth at this point.
Good morning. Thank you, everybody, for all your support. We couldn't do it without wonderful women and men who are a part of Represent PA. I'm Elizabeth Moro. I am a small business owner. How that all happened was I ran for Congress in 2017 when there were no women at the table for Pennsylvania. And as the 11th of 12 kids from Michigan, I knew if women weren't at the table, we weren't going to get anything to eat. So I ran in the most gerrymandered district, which was the old 7, and traveled the 5 counties for a year. And then the district was dissolved when the redistricting happened. But what came of that experience was just talking to people everywhere and realizing that there are these common threads that bring people together, which is why I wrote the Civil Graces Project, which is the name of the book. And the idea around that is we were in Trump point one, we were being driven to civil war. And I said, wouldn't it be great if instead of war, we focus on civil grace? What brings us together? What brought us together in the first place? And leaned heavily into that. And I published it 5 years ago. And it's like now people are waking up going, wow, that's a novel idea. Maybe we need to come together. I opened a cafe in Centerville, Delaware, and we call it Centerville Place, leaning on the idea that there's a place for everybody at the table. And my husband and I worked together, and that was our thought that we will serve the community this way. And where we see people come in from all walks of life, and we kind of force them to sit together. It's an old house, it's an old historic house, lots of little tables, and people sit together. And the whole concept is we need to begin conversations about difficult things. And I jokingly call myself the political chef because I talk about politics, and I cooking was how I got out of my sadness of over what's happening to our country and not being able to have a seat at the table. So I created a space. And then people who knew me from my campaign days said, you got to run again for the state house. And I remember thinking at the time, why would I want to put myself through that again? But when I realized what our sitting representative was doing, and that based on experiences I've had working in the community through saving Crybilly Farm and different things that we brought people together, I knew we needed leadership who didn't come in with this sense of, I have all the answers, like, do as I say. We needed leadership that was willing to listen to the people and work with the people to come up with solutions to the problems that we're facing. And we are facing so many problems. I was just at a school board meeting last night where the big concern over the fact that Pennsylvania hasn't passed a budget yet is starting to have real impact on our educational system. And we just need people who are going to go in and be able to work with, unfortunately, we have to work with people who we don't agree with, and that's really hard work. But growing up in a family where I didn't get my way all the time, that's a second skin for me. I do too much in a day, I think, and a lot of people say, I don't know how you do so much, but and sometimes I wonder, how can we not do so much? And how do we get more people involved in the work that is so essential right now? My background's in public policy and political science. I remember studying the Cold War when it was dissolving and thinking, wow, we have an opportunity to really lean into freedom. I also have a degree in women's studies where we read Susan Faludi's book, The Backlash. And I remember thinking, wow, it's so great. We have so much happening in the 90s. It was the year of the woman, and we were going to move forward. And it feels like we're getting pulled back in every regard. And the one thing that I keep saying to people is we have to think about what we love, what we're for, because this, I believe, is our slingshot moment. We've been here before, maybe not this extreme, but it also feels like maybe it's more extreme because we see it in front of us 24/7. But this is our slingshot moment. every time we get pulled back, we have an opportunity to thrust forward. My brothers used to have all those little rubber slingshots. They were often aimed at me, so I have a familiarity with them. But I think this is our moment to move forward. But we have to know what it is that we want. And as a woman running in Pennsylvania 160, I know that the people in my district want access to quality health care. They want access to affordable housing. They want an economy that is going to allow them to do what they need to do for the people they love. And they want strong education systems. So it's interesting how your life experiences. I've been a single mom, went through that, thought I'd never get married again, and then met the love of my life who has just as much drive and ambition as I do. So we work as a team. Um, all these things of our lives shape us into who we need to be. And I think there's a proverb, for such a time as this, you were born. And I'm just trying to find my way of how I can be of service. And I began my life with service and will spend the rest of my days doing that with or without an office, but working very hard to flip this, the last red district in Delaware County, and it also touches on Chester County. So lots of opportunity to do good stuff for the people of my community, as I always have.
Thank you, Elizabeth. And now we will kick it over to Hadley.
Thank you, Gwen, and thank you everybody for being here. I see a lot of friends out there, and I'm grateful for all of you and grateful for the incredible work of Represent PA. I ran for House District 44 in 2024. It's the western suburbs of Allegheny County outside of Pittsburgh, and our top flip opportunity for Democrats in the western part of the state. I have run against a woman and I'm running against her again. She is the incumbent. She's in her fourth term now. I raised more money than she did. I knocked far more doors than she did last cycle. But I lost in a really difficult year for Democrats. It was a tough, contentious campaign, but I learned a lot. And I say all the time, one of the best parts was that I met so many wonderful people from across the state as part of this process. And I'm really grateful for that. I announced my intent to run again over the summer, and I'm officially launching my campaign at Nancy Patton Mills's home, if anybody knows her. She was the former state party chair and lives in my district in Moon Township. And so we'll be launching with Congressman DeLuzio in early December. I came to this, I never planned to be a politician. I have an economics degree from the University of Michigan. So Elizabeth and I both have a Michigan connection, and worked in marketing communications for a long time. My sons were both born deaf, and so my advocacy really started with that. And then, through all of the school shootings and the gun violence, I really became more politicized through that work and looking around at elected leaders who continued to vote against gun safety measures. And I just couldn't fathom how this kept happening, and looked at my own state representative and thought, I need to run against her because she continues to be on the wrong side of these issues that are really important to me and to my community. My sons now are 21 and 19. They're both in college. So my husband and I are technically empty nesters now, but we do have a really needy dog. And my kids are still around for holidays and summers. And, unlike Elizabeth, I'm the oldest of 4 kids. So I see all those oldest daughter memes and I feel very seen by that. I'm the one who hosts the family gatherings. I'm the one who plans the vacations. I'm the one who checks in on my mom every other day. My dad died when I was 25. So that dynamic really shifted when I was young. And I was the one who was taking care of my family and checking in on my family. And, I bring that up because I think when we think about the hurdles, and Gwen touched on this too, but the mental load is different for women. We're running really stressful campaigns. We're dealing with that on a daily basis. And then something comes along and it throws everything out of whack. whether it is family illnesses, taking my mom to doctor's appointments. My son plays soccer. He's actually on the deaf national team, which is really exciting. But he found out that he had the opportunity to go to Brazil the week after or the week of the election, and that he needed his passport rushed. So, late October, I'm like calling the congressman's office and trying to get a passport for him in the middle of running this campaign. So those are the types of things that you still have to deal with, even though you're going to fundraisers and knocking doors and sitting on Sunday night caucus calls with leadership, reporting on how many doors you knocked that week. So there are a lot of things that are unique for women. I know we're going to get into some of this more, but raising money is the biggest hurdle and the most difficult thing, especially as someone new to politics. My family had no experience with politics. They didn't understand why they were supposed to give me money. They still don't always understand why I need more money from them. And breaking into those political circles, especially, and I think I've talked about this on these calls before, but especially, labor unions, organized labor is important for Democratic candidates. And in Western Pennsylvania, those are largely dominated by men. So I literally had to have, we called him my labor Sherpa, another elected leader who walks me around the Labor Day parade and goes to the building trades meetings with me to be a validator for me. And that's just the reality that doesn't exist for men. So there are a number of hurdles, and just getting dressed every day is a hurdle for women. I've been at a couple events, lucky enough to be at a couple events recently with the governor, and I marvel how he can wear the exact same thing at every event, where I have a bed full of clothes every time I go to get dressed because I'm trying different things on and don't want to be photographed in the same thing at every event. And honestly, every time I leave the house, I know that people are looking at me differently, especially since I announced that I'm running again. So I have friends who will make comments about things I wear. Sometimes they want to be helpful, but they're cognizant that I could be photographed and those pictures could be used against me in a mailer. I brought these out today. These were my earrings that I bought to wear for the Pride Parade in 2024. And I thought they were really fun. My staff thought they were really fun. Every single attack mailer had the picture of me wearing my Pride earrings. So there are things like that that you just have to think about in a way differently than most men have to be aware of.
Thank you, Hadley. That story just made me think of this. When I was running, there was this shirt that I really liked, and it kind of had a higher collar. And the attack ad that they put out it was around Halloween. They made me look like a vampire. I was like, are you serious? Are you kidding? But I would love to hear, and I think other people would like to hear, if Joe, Elizabeth, Hadley want to share more. I know you just did share a lot about this, Hadley, but if you have other stories, do you feel like, you got more unsolicited advice than, say, a male counterpart? And how did you deal with that? How did you deal with all of those comments? And how do you deal with when things go kind of nasty? How do you deal with that? So whoever wants to go first.
Well, I'm 5'2", and I have worn heels my whole life. I think I found my sisters and they used to yell at me not to break their heels, but I've loved them. And those are my shoes. That's what I'm comfortable with. And I get more comments. So when you had the chapter, Joe, about the shoes, it made me laugh out loud because I've had people say, we hate you for wearing those. And other people I love them. And it's like you said, Hadley, is Josh wears this, Governor Shapiro wears the same outfit everywhere he goes. And yet, we have to make sure we're standing up straight and that you don't show, all the things that a woman shows. And one guy said, why don't you just wear pants? It's funny how people feel like they can come up to you and make comments. And then if you dress too nice, there's a comment for that. If you don't dress too nice, like sometimes I come from the cafe and I smell like food and it's, that's my job. And so you're constantly being scrutinized. And then as an older woman, it's like one thing that you didn't mention is like, where the heck are the bathrooms? Because you've got to plan ahead if you're going to be outdoor knocking and if you're talking to people and you are not the first one to go, and then all of a sudden it's your turn and it's like, oh my God, I gotta go find the bathroom. I mean, that's just life as a 50-year-old woman. So those types of things, I just don't ever think men have to deal with.
Yeah, I have a good friend of mine is a former Republican, and I had been out door knocking and went from door knocking to a meeting with the Pitt Democrats. They hold their meetings at 9 o'clock at night. So I went down to the Pit Dems meeting and I was wearing like a yellow sweater and jeans, and I am also short. I claim 5'3", but probably closer to 5'2.5", 5'2". And I was wearing these Ugg boots that had a big rubber sole and just sitting on a panel talking to the kids. And this former Republican friend of mine screenshotted a picture from Facebook and was like, you have to be more cognizant of what you're wearing. They are going to use this photograph against you. And I was initially really irritated by that, but then I thought his lens is valuable. This is a really purple district. And I have to also take that he's trying to help. And even though it's annoying that men wouldn't get the same type of criticism, it is useful. And so I, took that to heart and used that information thoughtfully. But at the same time, I was like, it was 10 o'clock at night and I'd been knocking doors and it was cold. But yeah, so there were a lot of different experiences like that for sure.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it is insane to me. I think about this every single day watching the news, that like any sartorial choice that a woman makes is criticized, when so much of our current cabinet tans so much they look like Oompa Loompas and no one ever talks about it. It just blows my mind. And yet a woman can have, as someone said in the comments, like there's no messy bun days for women. And that's true for all of us. I mean, and not just women running for office, but for women in the spotlight, for female influencers, for female celebrities, our weight, our clothes, our hair, it takes so much time. I mean, this is just so much mental effort that goes into the mental effort that we're already putting in, that is unacknowledged by both men and women. And I know I keep saying that, but it's true that I do think a lot of the harshest attacks about clothes and hair and bodies and things like that come from women.
There was an ad that because I have blonde hair, they ran that I was in an astronaut costume, like a space cadet, because obviously I'm blonde and I must be an airhead. And then there was another one where I was a cheerleader next to Speaker McClinton, that I was just a cheerleader. But I got to say, they made my abs look better than I did in high school. So I was like 10 points for that.
Bring it
But
on.
just the way that they put a woman in a setting, it's never anything but stereotypical, and that how could you dare be out there seeking leadership?
Well, I have one more question before I kick it over to everyone else here to ask questions. And that is, can you share the impact that getting endorsed by Represent PA and other organizations like Emily's List, how did that impact your race?
I can go first on that. I mean, it's been tremendous. I honestly can't imagine doing this without Represent PA and Emily's List specifically. As I said, fundraising is the biggest obstacle for running. And everybody's looking at those early reports to validate the strength of your campaign. And the fact that Represent PA gives early and gives significantly to women is a huge boost. Every time I got a call from a Represent PA representative, I was so thrilled, and it got that boost. Whether I was out, often I was out knocking doors and I would get the call, and was just really lifted my spirits and gave me some momentum. And Emily's List, I mean, they provided really like the council. I call my contact at Emily's List like my big sister. She's unbiased and I can go to her with any question. One of the other hurdles I didn't mention is just knowing who to trust. And so knowing that I had a trusted advisor at Emily's List who would give me her unvarnished opinion is a tremendous comfort.
I would agree. I think having a network of strong women standing by your side, we stand on the shoulders of those who have paved the way for us to run for office. And just the contribution in ideas, in funding, in the events that also lift us up. You all do so much to help us. There's many wonderful grassroots campaign or organizations like Change PA and the States Project, and along with Emily's List, who really gave us the early money. And it makes you a legitimate candidate. And for women, I think that is so essential, especially in a state where it is predominantly still uh, being led by men. And I'm so grateful to all of you for everything you do and just opportunities like this to listen to other women, um, and have the experience of getting ideas and the sisterhood that we share through this organization. So thank you.
So at this point, if anybody has a question that they would like to ask our guest speakers, you can either put it in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand and unmute, or Tiffany, if you think there's a better way to handle that. Does anybody have a burning question? If not, I'll keep asking questions. Oh, Natalie, you go. Natalie, you're muted.
I'll be quick. Joe, back to your comments about the culture that we're living in right now. And I'd like for you to comment more about how we can break through here because, in 2024, I could not believe that so many women, in my view, I thought we were set in Pennsylvania, and we have so many women that voted a different way.
Yeah.
And also that, just the influence it's having on our young women here and the progressives and so on, which I think, we are and want to be in so many ways. Just anyway, a little more comment about how we break through.
Yeah, I mean, I have so many thoughts on this, and I've had a lot of meetings with it. I mean, I've been in a lot of fundraising meetings with different political influencers who are trying to explain this to a lot of donors who I think, I mean, frankly, in a lot of cases, don't totally get it either. Social media is a massively influential tool for young women, as are the podcast networks. I hate bringing up Charlie Kirk again in a call, but I've been talking about this for 2 years now. Turning Point did a brilliant job of breeding young female influencers with multi-million user platforms and frankly, multi-billion viral reach of a lot of their content over the past years. And we haven't done the same thing. We just haven't. I think that we have ignored social media. We've ignored culture. We've also created a lot of silos, frankly, within our party of excluding people from the bigger tent of the Democratic Party, attacking people if they say the wrong thing or they don't say something perfectly, instead of trying to bring people in and have actual conversations about things. The things that work so well on the right are these culture pipelines. Turning Point created wellness and lifestyle and pop culture influencers who you come because they're talking to you about diet and exercise, and all of a sudden you're like, yeah, I don't care enough about birth control to fight for this. They're telling me that it's going to make me sick. We need to focus on inclusivity in our messaging. We need to go where the eyeballs are for these young people too, because it's not mailers, it's not TV. Those work for a certain segment of the population.
It's very good.
But not for them. And I just do not think the Democratic Party writ large is doing that. I think we can focus on it in the state. And I think we can focus on it in our world and our microcosm, and have so many more talks about this, because I just feel like we're hitting a wall nationally every time folks try to bring this up, to be like, your branding is not working with young women. Another thing I hear a lot, because I was touring the country for the Everyone Is Lying to You book tour, and I had a lot of young women coming, and they're like, you older feminists seem so angry. Look at these ladies on the internet with their chickens and their farms and their homesteading and their sourdough. They're so happy. And I'm like, they are lying to you. They are content creators. They're working 24/7. They're the breadwinners of their families. All of the things you want to live a softer life, to work a little bit less, to have kids, but then also go back to work. These are progressive values, but we are not branding them that way. We are not showing young women that all of the freedoms and all of the joy they can have in the world come from our values. And the right is just lying to them and pretending that it's the things that they're presenting, which we all know is complete bullshit.
I have weekly coffee sessions on Monday morning. I call it Mondays with Moro, and I invite the community, just come, I'll listen. And coffee's on me, conversations on you. And I also work with a lot of young people who talk to me about exactly what you're saying. They are being courted left and right. And we always talk about how hard it is, and how hard we've worked to get here, and the whole fight to get to something. And then you have the right that is like, just fit into the cultural norm we want you to, and we'll reward you. And I think what we have to do is exactly what you're saying, reach out to people. I'm working on building a youth cabinet to help advise my campaign. I think there's a whole impetus for this younger generation to take the reins, but they don't want to. It's kind of like they don't want the lifestyle that we created with the big house and you have to mow the lawn and take care of everything. They don't want that. They want a life that allows them freedom. We just have to understand how we can help them see that we're actually like there was a discussion of young women that says, "Oh, I don't have to be a feminist. I'm college educated and all these things about what they have." And I said, "Yes, that's because the feminists fought that you could have those rights." And so sometimes it's trying to find that balance of having that conversation to help them know um, all the things that we take for granted. Margaret Atwood did it best, and I think they do plug into that novel about how quickly it could be taken away
Yeah.
and how quickly everything could shift where we are no longer allowed to have a voice. So it's trying to figure out the message that syncs with them, but also in a world of social media, they are getting hammered, especially the young men. Some of the young men who are in my cafe who work with me say they get stuff all the time about how to be a real man and that you should hate your mother. And there's a real issue where we've demonized white men in our conversation. And we talked about this Monday at Mondays with Moro. One gentleman said, I'll stick with the Democratic Party because I believe in it. But he says, the language that is used often doesn't make me feel like I belong. Like everything's my fault and I don't have the right to cry or feel anything. And yet I work so hard every day. And I'm like, we have to, I said, maybe make an annex on our big tent and make sure we're welcoming in all the voices, even as challenging as it is with our collective history.
Yeah, no, I agree. I talk to so many men who feel like they've been left out, who feel like they're being blamed, frankly, in a lot of the party's rhetoric. Same with a lot of women. Okay, and the best thing the right has done, and not the best, but I mean in terms of branding, marketing, right, is that like they'll accept anyone in their tent, literally anyone. You could kill a puppy, literally kill a puppy. And they're like, it's okay, it's cool, yeah, because they think of themselves as a coalition. And they're just like, we're a lot of different things, right? It's okay. You believe this, you don't believe this. Whereas I think that we're like, you have to believe everything that we say or you're out, or it's your fault. You're the reason that this isn't working for us. And I know, like, I mean, I've just tried to be as vocal about this as possible in so many meetings because I'm living in the world with these young people, and I'm just watching them fall away from the party that has done so much for me. The thing that I say to them all the time, I'm like, guys, I'm so freaking happy. I have 3 kids. I'm 45 years old. I have a very successful career. I'm married to a man who is not my glass ceiling, who helps me out, helps me achieve all of my ambitions. And that is possible because of equal pay laws, because of laws protecting women, because of birth control, because I didn't get pregnant in my 20s and 30s, right? Like I try to like spell this all out for them. I'm like, my life is great. But they just they do see what they're like, you're angry, you're overworked, you're burnt out, you're stressed. And these ladies with their chickens seem so happy.
This is a great discussion. We have a few more questions, and I see that Adrienne has her hand raised. Do you want to unmute and ask your question?
Yes. Hi, Adrienne, I'm from Wynwood, and I am a member of the Democratic Party. I am in leadership locally. And how do you deal, and this is a really flipped question compared to the discussion that we just had. How do you deal with the misogyny? I am so tired of being told I'm wrong, then finding out that I am right, and then nobody mentioning that I was right. I am very tired of the disrespect that I get, that the men in the party do not get. And I am, as I like to say, I lost my filters at menopause, but I have started calling them out, and most of them are older men. It's not the younger men, it's the older men, the ones in my seniors. And but there are the ones in leadership. Frustration.
Yeah, that's a really difficult, tricky question. And, I think that in some instances, how I dealt with that is to surround myself with a lot of women on my campaign. My campaign manager, my finance director last cycle were women. And, we really worked well together. There was some issues with misogyny, especially in committee leadership. In the off cycle, since I lost, I've been working a lot on committee development and getting other women involved in the local Democratic committees in my districts and getting them into more leadership positions, building coalitions to help push back against some of that misogyny. But some of it's part of the process. I mean, I was with somebody last night who I know is somebody that is important. And he always talks too closely to me. And you try and smile and take a step back. So where you have to be pragmatic and push back where you can and know that just by being in these rooms that we're making a difference, but working within the framework that we're given to. But I feel for you, and I'm glad that you are in the position you're in, Adrienne, and thank you for being here, and thank you for fighting the good fight.
We're at 9:27. I know there's a couple more questions in here, and Tom had posted a question which kind of relates to what we were just talking about. And I see Eva Gold has a question about what you might do differently next time. That sounds like a great topic for a whole other breakfast briefing. I have a feeling we're going to have a lot of time between now and the 2026 election to be talking about that. But because it's 9:27 and I do respect all of your time, what do you think, Tiffany? Should we wrap up with our final few slides? Hearing all of this discussion, it just really solidifies for me why it's so important what we're doing at Represent PA. We are in the thick of fundraising for our incumbent protection round. So we've got a number of events coming up. I think we were talking a little bit about them at the top of the hour, well, prior to 8:30. Tomorrow night, Pat West and I actually will both be out in Pittsburgh. We are gathering at the Pittsburgh Golf Club. I just heard last night from Rep. Latasha Mays that she will also be there. We've got Senator Lindsey Williams, Rep. Jess Benham, and Mandy Steele. And I don't know if you were following sort of more local news, but there was an article that came out in Penn Live about poor Mandy Steele and what happened when she spoke on the House floor, and Malcolm Kenyatta got up to sort of defend her bill. It was on a gun safety measure, and like sergeant in arms had to be called. It sounds like a nightmare. And actually, I was just speaking with someone at HTCC that because of that, there are now earlier attack ads that have come out against her. So she needs our help. If you're going to be out in Pittsburgh, or you know anybody that's going to be out in Pittsburgh, please join us. And then the next slide, we've got an event coming up on November 6th. And I think I saw Carol on this call. I'm so excited to meet you in person, Carol. Carol has graciously offered to open her home to host a Represent PA event. We're going to be joined by Senator Patty Kim and Rep. Nikki Rivera, sorry. And again, if you're near Lancaster or know anybody, please help us spread the word. And then on the next slide, we've got our Philadelphia event on November 13th. This is at the Acorn Club. Right now, we have two wonderful dynamic speakers, Senator Maria Collette and Rep. Elizabeth Fiedler. We probably will be adding some other guest speakers. It's a little further out, but if not, we've got two great women with us. There's a fabulous host committee. I think we're already at like 50 hours. Like, this event is going to be a lot of fun. So if you're around and you can make it, or you know a friend that you think can make it, please share it. We want to be able to continue to support our incumbents that are in office. And then if you go to the last slide or the next slide, I know we talk about this every time that we have a breakfast briefing, but it is really important. We are in a very precarious situation in Pennsylvania. We have a 1-seat majority in the House. That's it, 1 seat. We do not have a majority in the Senate. So while our majority in the House allows us to have fabulous, Madam Speaker Joanna McClinton, and she chooses what gets on the floor for a vote, Democrats pass all these great bills, and then they go die in the Senate. With the guardrails off at the federal level, we are, at least in Pennsylvania, protected by that 1-vote majority and our Democratic governor. And of course, the courts. I got to get this plug in. Everybody knows vote yes for the judicial retentions. That's also really important. But in 2026, it is vital. We have got to hold the majority in the House. We've got to pick up seats in the Senate. We can do it, and we need your help to do it. And as you heard from Elizabeth and Hadley, and I can share my own experience as being endorsed by Represent PA, that early money is critical. It helps you hire campaign staff. It gives your campaign legitimacy, so that when you then go talk to other donors, they say, oh, you already have that much in the bank. Or even the caucuses, when they're making decisions of spends and who they're putting up on TV. It just is invaluable. And then the network of the support that comes along with it is also invaluable. So while the incumbent protection round is open now, and we are raising for that, generally speaking, for the challenger races, those are folks that are not incumbents, that usually opens up at the beginning of the year, and then we endorse closer to the primary. And we really want to be able to come out in a big way for all of our candidates that we endorse, because it's critical. It's critical in Pennsylvania. If on the next slide, there are many ways to get involved. You can attend breakfast briefings, share breakfast briefings with your friend, bring some people with you. After our breakfast briefings, we do tidy up the recording and we put it on our YouTube channel. You can share that out to people on social media or however you want to share it. We also post it on our website. If you are interested in hosting an event, please talk to me or anybody from Represent PA, any of the executive committee members. We are trying to stack the first quarter of 2026 with as many events as possible so that we can come out in a meaningful way for our candidates. If you just have an idea for an event and you're not quite sure, talk to us. We will make it happen. You can join our mailing list. You can follow us on social media. You can become part of the endorsement committee. We're unique here at Represent PA in that we have an endorsement committee and we invite people into this process and helping decide who we're endorsing and how we're sort of shifting money around to our candidates. So that is my spiel. I have really enjoyed this conversation. I think this meeting could have gone on for much longer, but in the interest of time, I guess we'll call it a day.
Thank you, everyone, for your time and for your support.
And thank you so much, Elizabeth, Hadley, and Joe. Thank you so much.